Hello and welcome to my podcast today. My name is Christine Hernandez. And just a bit of a trigger warning for the viewers. Today what I'm going to be talking about is what perpetuates sexual abuse and molestation in the Latino culture. Just to give a bit of a background, I am Latina. I am Puerto Rican and Guatemalan. And I am interested in this topic because I have a lot of family members and friends who unfortunately dealt with this situation. They've been molested before, they've been sexually abused before, and I find it to be an issue that's very prominent in the Latino culture, in the Latino community. Being someone who lived in Humboldt Park, I was constantly hearing on the news about people who were raped while walking home, and it triggered something in my mind to think, what is causing the Latino culture to have such a high rate of sexual abuse and molestation within the families, within communities. Although culture highly values family closeness and connection, and cherishes family bonding, it's still a big issue in the culture. The culture alone has the potential to enable the rape culture within the Latino culture because of just the favor over the men in the family, religion and media that just boosts the rape culture in Latino culture. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, and the reason why I did this research was because I wanted to dive in more and maybe even come up with a call to action. So one of my first points that I'm going to talk about is the Latino gender roles that enable Latinos to believe that men are meant to dominate the household while women are expected to submit. So two terms that came up in my research were machismo and Marianismo. According to Maria-Lastra, who wrote a study about family closeness and domestic abuse among Caribbean and South American women in South Florida, and she defined machismo to be both a positive and negative connotation in Latino culture. Just to give you a brief definition of what she said men are expected to behave valiantly to protect the honor and welfare of the families, and that's the positive aspect. However, machismo may also entail men's active subjugation of women and performance of high-risk activities to prove their masculinity, thus increasing health risks for men and the risk of domestic violence for women. And she was studying on how family culture, how important family closeness is to the possible actions of sexual abuse within the family. And she found that her and her peers, who did the research study, found that if the closer the families are, the less likely there is to be domestic violence. But then she brought up these two terms that she explains enables the rape culture. Machismo is a term that is constantly used within the Latino culture, explaining that men have to be. It's kind of like a hyper masculinity term, and it's kind of forcing men to have this kind of macho attitude, and it almost encourages them to have an aggressive attitude towards women because they have to dominate women. And then she brought up the term Marianismo as a degrading term that steered women into a lifestyle of submitting to her husband and caring for her family whether she wants to or not. And according to another young lady, her name is Priscilla from HipLatina, defines Marianismo as to be a chaste, virginal, and inherently good in every way. Sex is not discussed in Marianismo, much less had until you're married, and then only with your husband. Never mind the existence of LGBTQ persons. You are in a sense seen as better than men because men can't control themselves, but you, of course, should. And that was a quote that really shocked me. It was a culture shock, just because women are expected to be a certain way, and the Marianismo kind of stems off of like the Virgin Mary. You gotta look a certain way, you have to be perfect, and you have to be a virgin. You can't have sex until you have a husband, and only a husband. And the Marianismo and machismo kind of play hand in hand. The woman is expected to submit to her husband, while her husband is basically allowed to act however he wants. He has no control over how he acts. He has no control over the feelings he has towards her. So technically, what they're saying here, both women are saying here, is that regardless, it's the woman's fault if she's sexually abused, because she's the one that's expected to be better than the man. Then on to my next point. So if a girl in the family has been sexually assaulted, Latino culture and sometimes Christian Catholic views can bring shame to the family. Not just herself, but her parents as well. Parents, mainly mothers, I found in my research, will feel a great amount of shame and put the blame on their daughters, and believe that it's a punishment from God. If their daughter is raped, that God, was punishing them for something that happened in the past, as well as feeling shame because their daughter is no more, she's not clean, she's not perfect anymore, she's not that example of a Marianismo. According to a reading that I found called Sin Vergüenza, which addresses shame within Latino victims of child sexual abuse in their families, they quoted, family members may worry that cooperating with authorities will increase the likelihood that word will get out that their daughter has been ruined. The word ruined just really stuck out to me. She's no longer perfect. She's no longer the Virgin Mary. Now she's ruined. She's not clean anymore. And something I read in that reading was the mothers would even take their daughters to the doctor to even check if they had been fully penetrated. If they hadn't been fully penetrated, the mother would walk out happy because their daughter is still a virgin. But if she was fully penetrated, then the mother would feel great shame, and she would feel like she would either put the blame on her daughter or put the blame on herself. And then that leads to also self-shame. The victim herself will feel shame because her family has allowed her to believe that it was her fault. She shouldn't have dressed a certain way. She shouldn't have acted a certain way. So now she believes she brought this on herself, which another piece of research that I found that goes with that point is that from Latina magazine, Raquel Reichard says that religious Latino parents tell their daughters not to make men sin by showing too much skin or wearing form-fitting clothing. And then Latinas being taught to prevent rape and sexual assault instead of men being told not to rape. And so it creates this heartbreaking situation where the victim believes that she had put this on herself. No, it was nobody else's fault but herself, and which is a lot of pressure, because now she not only brought shame to herself, self-shame, but she brought shame to her family. And then that's what leads to my last point, is that rape culture is the rape culture that is enabled in Latino culture has negative effects on the mental health of Latina victims and on their life after the situation that occurred, whether it be molestation, sexual abuse, or sexual assault. Latina victims face post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociation. This was found among researchers at a university that did a study testing for the correlation between childhood sexual abuse and PTSD and dissociations, and they found that the childhood sexual abuse group had lower scores of cognitive memory and memory activities. Proved that there is a correlation between sexual abuse and PTSD and dissociation, a traumatic situation that a young girl has to go through, whether it be that a family member did it to her, whether it be someone in her community, it's bound to bring her post-traumatic stress disorder. It can affect her memory, it can affect her performance in school, actually affect how far she how far she gets in the future, whether she's she may lose motivation because of an incident that happened that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Latina victims who have been sexually assaulted are more likely to be re-victimized. Researchers also found that sexual abuse victims are likely to either experience poly-victimization or re-victimization, and this is just because they don't look for resources. They don't look for organizations that might help them, or they don't look to therapists. They don't speak to other people because they don't think about it. That's not something they were taught. To conclude this podcast, I truly believe that there is a rape culture specifically associated with Latino culture. The media enables it through music, and it's also enabled through family itself. If the family lacks closeness, then they're more likely to put the blame on their daughter and feel shame to their daughter. They may favor their son over their daughter. Throughout this research, I found that there is a correlation between sexual abuse in Latino culture, and sadly, it has to do with religion. It has to do with the family, and it has to do with just the personal beliefs within the culture. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day, and I hope that Latinos create more bonds with their daughters, and encourage them to believe that that their body is their own. They don't have to submit to anyone, and if something does happen, that they can find comfort in their family, and they can find acceptance in their family, and their family will be there and for them regardless, and they will support them regardless. So thank you again. That's all.